Did you get a message about recording?
Yep.
Did you click accept?
Yep.
All right, we're good. So hello and welcome to the Addicts Anonymous podcast / YouTube video. This is our first time ever doing this. So we're going to be interviewing Ryan S. today. We're doing video and everything. So it's nice to meet everybody. Ryan, how are you today?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's a busy day doing this kind of stuff. So tell us a little bit about yourself, brother. Tell us about your childhood. Let's start off there.
Well, my childhood was, I guess, kind of dark. Had my first drink when I was like 3 years old. Got left when I was 6.
Real quick, what was the situation at 3 years old? Was it like, I've heard of people when their children are teething, they put it on their gums or something.
For me, it was at a party with my mom and dad, and I was thirsty, and they didn't want to give me a pop, so they just told me to have a sip of their beer.
And you were 3?
Yeah.
No shit.
Man.
So moving on, when did you continue at that point, or did you like start drinking at 3 years old, or
No,
you just
that was my first sip.
Okay, thank goodness. So tell us more.
I got left with my 18-year-old cousin, which led to me being sexually assaulted when I was 8. And
Your parents just left? They left you with your cousin?
yeah, it was supposed to be babysitting me or something.
Oh, you mean just like during the day or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it didn't really work out. And tried talking about it with them, tried telling them. They didn't want to believe it.
Oh, so you told your parents?
Yeah. And I had to live with that for many, many years until eventually I was incarcerated. I was probably about 27 years old when I was incarcerated, and my cousin got put in jail with me in my cell, and a fight was on, and he wound up getting hurt really bad.
In the cell?
Yeah. Within 5 minutes, he was being carried out to the hospital ward.
Wow. So what was your childhood like? I mean, how, so you were left with your cousin during the day, but overall, obviously you were young. How did the rest of your childhood go? How was school, things like that?
School, I was always picked on. I was a short, fat kid. By the time I graduated grade 8, I was maybe 5'2", 250 pounds.
Wow. 5'2", 250. I'm just fixing something here. Yeah, that's my what do you call it? That's my biggest ever also. So kids picked on you. What else was going on at that age? Move forward as far as your childhood.
Yeah, and it was my mom's parents tried everything. As time went on, I was being abused from an abusive drunk of a father. That's pretty much our quality time, was him beating my ass. And it got to the point where my mom's parents tried to take my brother and I, or get custody of my brother and I from him for our safety. And I think things started going downhill once my grandfather passed away when I was in grade 2. And when my grandmother passed, I think I was in grade 5.
Were you very close with them? Did you live with them? What was the deal?
I was very, very, very close to them. And once my grandmother passed, it's like I shut down. I started becoming a shell. I didn't really want anything to do with anybody or anything. And as for the bullying, that's I started fighting back once I started training with my aunt's boyfriend at the time. And that eventually led to me getting into a lot of crap down the road.
Because you were taught to fight.
Yeah. Well, I was taught to fight or taught to defend myself, but I took it beyond that.
So moving into like your high school years, or I guess what I should ask is at this point going through your life when you were going through all that stuff, did you ever use drugs? Because I know we started off that you tried your first sip at 3 years old. When was the next time you used drugs? Was it during your early childhood or not?
Yeah, I started using it harder when I was in grade 9. The summer of grade 9, I started smoking marijuana and got into the harder drugs going into grade 10 and started selling it. More I had my hands on, more I did.
What kind of stuff was it?
Pretty much when I was selling, I was like a rolling pharmacy.
Where'd you get all the stuff from?
I had some contacts with a group, and they gave me it. And I pushed it.
So they would like, what do you call it? Because I sold weed when I was younger. It was a large amount I got caught with, but I did the same thing where I would get spotted like a pound, and then I would sell that.
Yeah.
So what kind of trouble did you ever get into trouble with the law over that? Did you ever get caught with drugs, anything like that when you were very young?
I never got caught with drugs. I was always good with hiding it. And when I was selling it, I ended up having people under me that were running it. And myself personally, I only dealt with maybe 4 people.
That's exactly what I did. It's exactly what I did.
I was kind of tried to have it as like an what do you call it? Organized operation.
Yeah. Just organized crime, right? That's what it is.
Oh, exactly.
So when did you think you first started having a drug problem? Was it used recreationally? You said you started grade 9. Was it used recreationally throughout high school? Like you were just kind of one of the guys doing stupid stuff? Or was it getting into heavy use?
I think when I got heavy into it, I was probably about 15 years old. I was doing probably a little less than what I was selling, but I always wound up having enough to make the next quantity.
So what exactly were you on during school? Was it just weed or was it other stuff?
It was mainly cocaine.
Mainly cocaine. And nobody noticed? I mean, what were you doing in the bathrooms?
Like I'd go out we'd have smoke breaks. I'd go out to my truck, do a
Your
bump
high
here or
school had
there.
smoke breaks?
Yep. Between each class, we had 5 minutes.
No shit. And they didn't care if you smoked?
Nope.
Yeah, where I went to high school, you couldn't do that. If you went outside, you couldn't smoke cigarettes on school grounds.
Yeah, so
So did it continue? Did that heavy use continue all throughout high school till you graduated?
it continued and progressed, got worse and worse. Eventually led to me having 4 overdoses. I flatlined twice because of it.
I was about to ask that. What was that? What were you on that night or day?
Those times I was mixing cocaine with crystal meth and heroin.
And heroin, so you would do separate lines of each, or you would just mix it together and just see what happens?
I would do lines. I would mix them, smoke and heroin mixed with coke or meth, and it wind up being something that they call the speedball.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
And
But I thought,
Yeah.
yeah, it's cocaine and heroin. That's what I was taught. I never did that. I was lucky. I never did heroin. It's not like I'm any better. My preference was alcohol, which it ends up, I found out is really bad because when you withdraw from alcohol, if you don't have medical assistance, there's a chance you can die. With heroin, the withdrawals, you don't die from, but I mean, obviously you feel like you're dying if you don't do it with any
Mhm.
assistance. Because I was on opioids and I had to quit. I got lucky kind of because it was my friend that was getting me them, and we got into a fight. Like he shoved me on the floor, and I pushed him, and we never talked again. Well, not again. We're talking now, but we didn't talk for a while. And he was my contact, so I was kind of forced to go through withdrawals because there was nothing else to do. I couldn't afford to go to a detox, and I didn't have insurance at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, eat not to get too much into me, but even my last day, um, it was because I had a DUI, so the state paid for it. I don't know. There was some program to do it. It's crazy. But once you get out of high school, moving forward a little bit, because you said it got heavier and worse, or during high school, whenever it was, did you ever ask for help? Did you ever go to your parents or a friend or a family member or a therapist and say, I'm addicted to drugs and I need help? Like, were you at that point yet?
No, no, I wound up being on my own from the age of 16 on.
You mean like your own
So
apartment and everything?
I was living on my own. Had a son at 16 and had a daughter at 18. So became dad and had to work and put myself through school and tried to do the best I could with
Yeah,
for say.
yeah. Um, so what were you doing to support them?
I was working as a gas jockey and I was
What's a
also
gas jockey?
basically pumping gas.
Oh, okay, pumping gas.
Pumped gas, sold my drugs, and did whatever I had to do to keep a roof over their heads.
That's that's what you gotta do. I'm not saying sell drugs. Obviously, looking back, I'm sure you wish you could do something different to make that
Oh,
same money.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's great if you can generate an income that's completely legal. It just makes you feel better because you're not watching over your back. Because I know that
Exactly.
feeling of watching over your back. Like I said, I used to sell weed, and you're always just worried when I'm. It's not if, it's when I'm gonna get caught. Pretty much everybody gets caught. It seems.
Uh, with it, I got lucky. I was never busted with it.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
I came close. Like if I would have been searched, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, they may have found something, but
they never did.
no.
So you're pumping gas, you're doing drugs. What else is going on in your life? Do you have a girlfriend? Do you have a wife? Because I know you're a father now.
Yeah, so you got like my son and daughter's mother left when my daughter was 6 months old. And so I was left to raise two kids on my own and try to make the best of it. Then I started being in and out of jail more frequent. And
What would happen to the kids when you were in jail? Who would take care of them?
uh, my mother,
Okay.
between my mom and my brother, they watch them.
Okay. What were you going to jail for?
Assaults, fighting,
Assault?
mainly being trained with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and kickboxing. Kickboxing was at the point where I I had maybe I was 2 fights away from being Golden Gloves. And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I was going on my 8th year. I continued till for 12 years. And then I eventually got away from it and got into cage fighting. And
So you're shouldn't mess with you. um
I've,
so, so tell me about the mother of your children. How did you guys meet? When did you guys meet?
I've met in school, and I don't know, things kind of clicked there for a bit, and out of nowhere, I'm in a class and get a call that I had to go pick up my kids from my mom's work. And she is bailed out when my daughter was 6 months old. And I was like, what? I didn't know what to do. So
You said bailed out.
yeah, she took off and never
Oh,
looked
okay.
back.
Gotcha.
Like they got there, and with my son and daughter, they both passed away. My son was hit by a drunk driver when he was 6 years old, who the driver wound up being an informant to the police, and the police never did anything about that. I didn't get closure from that one until probably a few years ago here. I found seeing he's living here in the city I live in, Saskatoon, and seeing him get into an accident and being afraid. I stopped just to see and realized who it was, and waited for the police to get here, and spent about 9 hours down at the police station doing paperwork and informing about our history.
What
and
did no, keep going.
and what happened. And the cops wound up arresting him because he was intoxicated when he got into that accident, and they wound up charging him for what is it called,
Vehicular manslaughter.
yes, and he wound up going to the penitentiary. And last thing I heard is someone got him there.
So he's dead.
Yeah.
And you said both your children passed away.
And my daughter, was a few years later, I was all starting to come around to the rooms at that time. And I was working as a roofer. I was on top of a 24-foot roof at the time in the middle of winter. I was trying to get the job done so I could take a couple weeks to take her on a vacation over the holidays. So my other cousin was picking her up from school. She went to school with his kids, and she was dawdling. Someone was going a little too quick for the icy road conditions and started to slide, and she wound up getting hit with the tail end of his car. And the difference with that individual, he waited around, went up to the hospital, waited till I got there. And as I walked through the emergency doors, he came up to me in tears and said he's sorry for what happened. It was his mistake. And I got this, as livid as I was, I don't know, it seemed to have had a heart that day. And I accepted his apology. And I didn't do anything. I let it go because he had enough balls, per se, to face me face to face and tell me what happened. And to this day, I still talk to the guy. He's still haunted by it.
No shit.
And I still treat him as a friend.
And once again, how long ago exactly was this? And what was your age?
That was back in 2009.
How old were you when all this happened?
was in my 20s. It was during the time of being in and out of jail too. At that point, like after I lost her, I think that's when my mental state hit a low. I got into suicide attempts. I tried hanging myself in my basement at that time. Luckily, I was found by a friend or an old friend from Calgary that was coming down to hang out, and he found me hanging. I was already starting to turn colors, and got me down, got me to the hospital, and I'm still here.
Yeah. How did you react when you realized you were still alive? Because were you passed out when you were
I was
turning?
I was unconscious.
But you eventually woke up. How
Yeah.
did you feel when you woke up? Were you like pissed off, or were you happy?
I was irate. I didn't want to be here anymore. At that time, I felt like I lost my world.
Yeah.
Like not just losing one child, but losing two within 2 to 3 years of each other. It was difficult.
I can imagine.
After that, I started to finish up my tour of the Canada's finest penitentiaries, per se.
Your tour.
At my road tour.
What was your longest stint? What was your longest stay?
My longest stay was 6 years. It was 8 years. I spent 6.5 of them in solitary confinement because I was constantly fighting.
And what were you in for?
Fighting.
You were an angry guy. Did you were you able to get your drugs in jail?
I was always able to get them. Didn't matter if I was in jail or outside.
Is it really? I mean, because some guys I've spoken to who have been to jail, they make it like it's easy, like it's so easy. Somebody said it's more available in jail or the penitentiary than it is outside because you guys are in such close confinement. I was like, I truly wonder, with all the technology we have nowadays and all the precautions, how do people, pardon my language, get the fucking drugs into the jails? I don't get it. I don't get how that works. Can you give me any insight into that?
A lot of people kind of lube up and make them like a depository.
In their ass?
Some will put them in like a condom or whatever, swallow them, or some will put a bigger load in there and shove it up their ass and bring it in.
I'm surprised they haven't found a way to still, because they know people do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess it depends on the penitentiary because every now and then you do get a dirty officer who will help you get it in, I'm sure.
Yeah, I knew a few.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe in your 6.5 years you would have seen that. So you were pretty much at this point, you started using in high school and now it's like you're in your mid-20s. So you've been using for 10 years already.
Yeah.
Pretty long time at that point. You're still a young dude.
Yeah.
What were you like in jail? What was a day? Because I know you said you were in solitary. So did you get to do, I mean, were you able doing stuff? Like say you wanted to go read books or you wanted to work out? Because I think, they have that stuff in most places.
I had 30 minutes a day to be out of my cell. That's to make a phone call, to shower, to walk around.
They didn't.
And then pretty much my working out was what I made in my cell. Like I'd use my mattress as weights or a punching bag or whatever.
Wow.
Then I started to use the brick walls to punch.
Were you breaking your fingers?
Oh yeah, I was breaking my knuckles. I'd still keep going.
I mean, I know personally that would drive me insane. I I don't know if I would make it.
Well, it did drive me insane. Like, for the better part till until I got to the point where I am today, I was in and out of jail. I was in and out of psych wards or mental institutions. There was even a point where I was in a straitjacket.
What were you in the mental institution for?
Uh, Basically, with the psychosis I get into, I hear voices. Uh,
What would happen? Like, what would trigger? Did anything trigger this?
the biggest thing that would trigger it is when someone would do something as simple as they talk about my family, and instantly that switch would flip in my head. It'd, it'd be on. And
So you would fight, and then you would go into a psychosis.
yeah,
Was the psychosis brought on by rage?
Yeah.
Or did it every now and then happen for no reason? At any point did that happen?
Yeah, it's a mix between like the blind rage and the extreme or the drug use.
So for a while you were in and out of institutions, you were saying.
Yeah.
That really is it's crazy so far. So what age were you when you got out of the institutions where you were finally a free man again? Because you said you did 6.5 years. So
When
do you remember how
I
old were you when you got out?
think I was 28.
So you're still a fairly young man at that time. What do you do when you get out?
I managed to get back going to work, doing like concert work I picked up back then before. And
You said what kind of work?
like being a roadie, setting up
Oh,
concerts,
gotcha.
being a sound tech.
Oh, that's right. You told us that last night in the meeting.
Yeah. And just continued going with that. And eventually I couldn't live in the city that I was in anymore because of all the memories and hurt. So I chose to do a final move and move to the city I'm in. And I started going to NA here, or Narcotics Anonymous here. And that's where I met my spouse. I was in a meeting, we went for coffee afterwards and kind of hit it off. And
So you
everything
were
went.
you were going to NA meetings. What were they like to you when you first? What was your first impression?
My first impression, I thought everyone was full of shit.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand that.
Because I thought that because I wasn't open, I didn't have the open mind.
Yeah.
I didn't want to think that there's people like me or people worse than me. I was absorbed with me.
I think we all have that feeling of, oh no, I'm different. Those guys are addicts, but I'm just, you know what I mean? Then right there, you fill in with the excuses. I'm just, and then some people come with the real bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Met a couple addicts here, sat down and say, okay, fuck you. We understand you're messed up. You gotta be open to see that the rest of us here are just as messed up, if not some of us could be worse. And all we want to do is help you.
So one of the
And
old timers took you aside and said that.
yeah.
That was nice of him.
And surprisingly, they went from there. Then it got there started being all this political drama and bullshit going on. And I just said, fuck it.
What kind of
Walked
political
out.
drama? What kind of political drama?
There's no organization. Everyone wanted to be in charge of the meeting, but no one wanted to do the actual work.
Yeah.
So I say, okay, screw this. I walked out. Maybe a few days later, I was in the bar having drinks, and I stuck to drinking for a while, and got and recently fell back into using drugs, and ended up costing me about a month and a half away from my spouse and my family. And there's this last night where they came back. They were allowed to come back. And it was an overwhelming feeling with emotion. And at the same time, I look at it like during that time that they were away, maybe that's what I needed to pull my head out of my ass and get back to doing what I know I need to do. To go to meetings, be it online or in person or whatever, connect with people that have a similar kind of problem, or be willing to open up more than what I used to.
Let me ask you this. Did you
Right.
ever read the Narcotics Anonymous book?
Yeah.
What do you think? What did you think of it?
Some of the stories were all right. The one that always stuck out to me was always talking about like alienation, where it's basically I felt like I was alienated from society. Meanwhile, that wasn't the case. It was me making myself feel like it, because I didn't want to be a part of, or I wouldn't let myself be a part of.
Like we keep saying, for some reason we feel like, sometimes we're just different.
Yeah. Look, if I was normal, it'd be boring.
That's funny you say that. I say the same thing. I say, and one of the other things I say is, besides being boring, you're just like everyone else. If you're normal, it's good to kind of have that standing out. It could also be bad, obviously.
Well, it's like a saying that I enjoy. Say goes, just when you think you know all the answers, I change the questions.
Hmm.
And that's how things were with my life. Just when people thought they were getting to know me, I would change it. So I didn't want people to get to know me like that. I didn't want them to see me beaten and broken. I didn't want to
So
see.
I'll keep going.
I didn't want people to see me cry. I didn't want to see or let people see me happy or any of that. As soon as that would start happening, I would change.
So during those times when you felt that way, did you go to meetings or you just avoided them?
That was when I was in and out of the program, or going to NA and AA. I would do that, and that'd be the same thing at home. Like dealing with friends or family. I never wanted to let anybody in because of all the hurt. I guess that was my wall. I didn't want to let people in to risk getting hurt again.
What did you think of the 12 steps? Are you, if you don't mind me asking, do you believe in God? Because to me, that has a lot to do with the 12 steps. Because
I think
God is mentioned in 5 out of the 12 steps.
that's true. And with the whole God thing, I'm kind of up in the air about God. It's like I was never really religious. I was more spiritual. Like, do I believe in a power greater than myself? Absolutely.
Yep, me too.
Whatever it is, I don't know. Like, it could be the fucking light bulb or the doorknob or whatever.
Yeah,
Whatever it is for that moment.
exactly. So it sounds like you're kind of agnostic. Like I'm agnostic, and what that really means is that I don't know.
Yeah.
that I'm openly saying that I don't know what's out there, but I'm spiritual. I meditate. I've read a ton of Buddhist stuff because Buddhism is more about like psychology. That's why I like it. Um, Trying to figure out why you think the way you think and retraining your brain. So if you do that with therapy, it really does help. A lot of therapists will tell you that.
Well, the only therapy that they said help that worked with me was shock therapy.
Wow. That was going to be one of my next questions was, when was the first time you actually got, therapy for your mental issues? Because you said you were in a mental institution. Tell me a little bit about your mental health. Like when did you start having issues?
It was pretty much after my grandmother passed away. I started turning to that shell. I was easily triggered to fight, even though I'd get my ass kicked. I didn't want anything to do with anybody. I became extremely violent. And when I got like that, so I got that blind rage, and I get this sick sadistic smile on my face, and it's like my eyes would glaze over. It looked like a glazed donut.
Yeah.
And it'd be like no stopping me.
So the therapy, did it help? Did you ever get therapy at any point that helped you?
Not really, because I never opened myself up to it.
So you
That's
really
why
didn't really try that.
no.
That was the problem.
That's why like now it's after my relapse there, I am doing addictions meetings. Or I have addictions counselor. I'm going to I'll be doing like anger management. I'll be going through different kinds of counselors and not being and doing my best to be open and to hear their suggestions, to see what I have to do. And I'll be getting into doing like mental health stuff, like what can help with like PTSD, what can help with anxiety, what can help with depression, well, stuff that I deal with.
So you've been able to get resources to help you along.
Yeah.
That's great. That's really great. I mean, I think one of the most powerful things we can have is knowledge. I think we all need knowledge of what's going on in our brain, how it works. Read all the anonymous books if you can. If you have time, read Alcoholics Anonymous also, because that's where it all started. Just replace the word alcoholic with drug user and the word alcohol with drugs, or whatever, or cocaine,
Exactly.
because it's better than you use the word blind as far as rage, but now use the word saying you don't want to have blind. I don't know if the word's blind faith, but you should know what's going on in your head. You know what I mean? That's something I believe in.
Yeah, it's like that's something like when we were talking about fear last night, like that's my one fear is my head.
Yep.
Because I know what goes on up there. And yeah, it scares the shit out of me because I know what I'm capable of from what I've seen, I was conscious to. But what I'm not conscious to, I don't know. That's the part that scares me.
You mean when you black out?
Yeah.
And you can really hurt someone.
Exactly. And I have. Well, as my record shows, I don't play nice with others like that. And they try to get myself out of it to where I can work with people and be around people. Like, sure, it's still hard, but I got to keep an open mind to people. I have to be willing to give people a chance. They give me a chance.
Yeah. One of the things I try to tell myself before I get into a rage is, do you want to go to home? Do you want to go home? I'm sorry. That's what I meant. Do you want to go home, or do you want to go to jail?
No,
And
that's
usually if you're
exactly it.
able to say that to yourself real fast, your brain clicks and you're like, I just want to go home. I don't want to go to jail. That's bullshit. That's the worst. I've ended up in jail. And my record shows, not that I don't get along with others, but I'm also an idiot. Just get arrested. And it is what it is. But, so nowadays, how is life for you?
It's it was rough there for a while while my family was gone.
Tell us more about that. Why'd they leave?
Because at that time I was using again. There was concerns that I was using drugs in my home, as well as there's accusations made of me being violent towards or domestically violent towards my spouse and my son.
What kind of drugs were you using?
I was back using cocaine, meth, and heroin.
So you just get them all at once, huh?
Yippers,
You go all the way.
all or nothing.
So they ended up leaving you. Where'd they go?
They wound up staying with her mom for a while.
Okay. Were you in
And
contact with them at all?
yeah, I talked to my spouse every day, but with the accusations made, I couldn't have contact with my son or see my son pretty much for this whole time until last night.
That's awesome. Not
Where
awesome that you had to wait so long, but awesome that you get to saw him, that you got to see him last night. But during this time when you were not with him, what were you doing? Were you trying to get better? Did you have any like things you did that maybe you can say, give advice on what you happened to do that helped?
uh, my biggest thing is that I started reaching out for help. I started going to some of the NA meetings. I got in touch with an addictions worker that I have meetings with once a week, or I can call whenever if I'm having an issue. My biggest thing that helped me was like having some supportive friends that would kind of tell me to spartan up, and they'd be there to talk over a coffee or whatever, and getting lost in music. It's
Yeah.
finding that one resource that where I can lose myself to take myself out away from that pain.
Yeah. Sorry, my phone went off there. But yeah, absolutely. Especially having people around you, right? Having a community. That's one of the 4 pillars of Addicts Anonymous. We have 4 pillars that the whole program's built in, and it's part of our step 2, where it says came to believe that through self-love, discipline, hard work, and community, you can restore yourself to sanity. Because I believe if you build those 4 things up the right way and use them the right way, the hard work and the discipline, and make sure you have community, that you're going to get sober and stay sober. That's the whole point, and people can check out our 10 steps on our website, addicts-anonymous.com, just to do like a quick commercial there. But yeah, so you did all this stuff, got the resources, and how did you get your family back? Was it something that happened? Were you in like any type of like child services system, or this is just something where your wife just left or your girlfriend just left?
It got taken to family child services here, and
How'd they get involved with that? Who brought them in? Who like made the call to them?
my spouse's parents.
Okay.
Well, and they're the ones that made the accusations, so they got them involved, and I got distant from a lot of people, and just I used for a bit, then it started not having the effect. I was like, it's got to the point where I said, screw it, put it down, and started working with the family service workers and doing what they're suggesting, jumping through their hoops for just to get what I want. All I wanted was my family, and I've never been at that point of being broken where I felt like I had nothing left to lose.
Well, right there, when you say you had nothing else left to lose, that's another thing I believe is that some of us, not all of us, but some of us need to hit rock bottom before we really say, oh, I can't handle my shit, which is step one, where you say you have, came to believe that your life has become unmanageable and you could not control your addiction. So that's really part of it, was when you hit rock bottom. I believe when you hit rock bottom, you run out of options, because there's no more borrowing money from a friend. There's no more going to stay on someone's couch. There's no more someone taking care of you in that way. So you have no options kind of except to reach out for help.
Yeah, it got to that point where it felt like I was crashing and burning without a parachute. And it's like a prime example is like living across the street from my son's school and seeing him play outside at recess or whatever, and I can't even go over and say hi or give him a hug or anything. That's what got me to that point. I had to say enough. I had to throw my hands in the air and say, I'm done. I can't do it no more. And with how I was getting, it just about cost me my biggest supports.
Yeah. Really, that's one of the things I also left in step two, was the word insanity. I thought that was great that the founders of AA came up with that word. Didn't come up with the word, but they use the word, because if you look at the stuff we do, it's insane. Using drugs that, I mean, look at you. You got heroin, cocaine, and meth, which is mixed with stuff. Everyone cuts their stuff up. You know what I mean? You don't know what's in there. Nowadays, fentanyl is like in everything.
Yep.
And we're insane. We're putting that, we're snorting it. We're smoking it. We're injecting it. It's crazy. What was the real quick? What was the furthest you ever got? Did you ever inject it, or were you smoking it, snorting it? How did you do it?
Well, basically, if I was able to snort it, smoke it, or pop it, I did it. I came close to injecting once, but that was stopped when I seen my buddy doing the chicken on the floor after he took his shot.
What do you mean the chicken?
Where he was pretty much having a seizure on the floor.
Oh shit.
And I was like, holy fuck. Yeah, no.
Yeah. So that's awesome. So it sounds like you got your kids back now. What are your plans right now? What are you going to do to stay sober?
Get more involved. Be it the NA meetings here or with Addicts Anonymous. Hopefully eventually it started helping put on meetings again. And do it. Start giving back to people that helped me.
Yeah, I mean, we always need as much help as possible, looking after the group, posting stuff, making sure that, one of the things I do is I write for the group. And so if you have any ideas, I definitely will work with you to maybe come up with an article on something, you know what I mean? If you had a particular thing that you were facing or something you thought might be a good resource. That's really the point of Addicts Anonymous, is to provide resources for everyone.
Yeah. Well, it's like that's why I posted that piece of writing that I did talking about my life with my addiction, basically looking at it just like a slave and its master.
Yeah.
I was a slave to my addiction. I did everything for my addiction. I fought, I lost. luckily, the one thing I didn't lose, like the two things I wound up not losing completely is family. And for some reason, I never lost myself completely.
You were able to come back to yourself. That's a big thing. So it sounds like you were in addiction for a pretty long time. How long would you say? Because like for me, like I started doing stuff when I was 18 and I went to rehab when I was 37. So it's pretty much 20 years, 19, 20 years.
I think my addiction started more probably when I was 12 years old with drinking to 36.
Yeah, so about
20 years.
So over 20 years.
24, yeah, about 24 years.
Yeah, it's a long time. And like you said, we do insane, like we both were just saying, we do insane stuff. But my last question for you, because it sounds like a good place to wrap up, is for people that are going to end up hearing this, or I should say watching this also, do you have any advice for them? Anything that you would try to, or anything you would want people to try, you think would be a good resource, anything like that?
Well, I'd say find that one resource that you can get lost in, be it writing, music, singing, going to the gym, drawing, or doing whatever. Something to keep you out of your head.
Yeah. That is one of the most important things. Keep out of your own head. So, yeah, I hope to see you giving back in the group. And for everyone that's watching this or listening, I just want to say thank you. First of all, this was our first episode ever doing this, and we're going to plan on, if we get anyone following us, we're going to plan on doing this hopefully once a week. Ryan, just want to thank you for coming on. It's been an awesome interview, I think.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's
All
a
right,
pleasure.
so yeah, anyone that wants to learn more, go to Addicts Anonymous Facebook group. Under our events tab, you'll see that we have a Zoom schedule. Also, check out our podcast. It's on Spotify, it's on iTunes, it's on a bunch of different platforms. Just look up Addicts Anonymous. It's also on Anchor. So Anchor is a big one. Also, go to addicts-anonymous.com. It's our website. There's a resources page if you need stuff. There's also a blog. So that's all we got for today. And we hope you guys check it out, enjoy it, and look for future episodes. So until next time.